Hello everyone, welcome to today's flight. Today's flight is going to be actually more of a tutorial video related to the CIVA unit used in INS navigation. So the aircraft that this will be based on, centered on, will be the Felis 747-200. It is currently in the version 104 at the time of this recording. And this video will not be a full flight, but rather just edited to certain portions of the flight that involve both the programming of the actual unit. And then once it's programmed, we will look at how do we actually initiate it in flight, going from radio navigation until the end of the departure procedure, transition into INS navigation en route, and then when we get to the last fix, how do we transition back to radio navigation for the arrival, the standard terminal arrival route. So in just a moment, we'll be in the cockpit and we will start looking at the specifics of how to get the unit fired up, aligned, and programmed. See you in a moment. All right, so we're in the aircraft with a few systems lit up. About to head up to the front of the airplane. Just a reminder to always turn on that standby power switch to normal. That'll always wreak havoc on some of your planning up front. So even though we have electric to the aircraft, if we were to go up front and look down at our INS units or CIVA units, the interfaces you can see are dark right now. So there's no power to them at this very moment. So what we need to do is come on up here. We're going to hit that nav switch to let people outside the aircraft know that we're working in this airplane, getting it ready to move soon. Turn on that no smoking sign. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on in the upper right our radio master bus switches, the essential and the number 2. Now that being said, if we were to look down, we still wouldn't see any power just yet. So the next thing we need to do while up there is check out these 3 switches, and these are your mode selectors for the CIVA units, your INSs. Basically lets you turn them on and also monitor some progress and make sure that it's basically ready to go. So what we need to do is we need to get these gyroscopes spinning up with that basically supply information to these units. So we're going to put them into the align mode. Okay. And once we put it in the align mode, basically what's happening now is, in a nutshell, we've provided some power and we are initializing the system. We are spinning up these gyros that are going to allow us then to have a horizon reference as well as a directional reference and a location reference. And this is going to make more sense as we go along. If we come on down over here, and we look at the units, now we can see some power has been established to the units on all 3, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to have a closer look at these, a little bit more zoomed in than I normally would, and just so you can see some of the buttons that we need to work with. So what I'm going to show you first is we're going to rotate this indicator. See the little notch there? All right, so this is your data selector, and anything that we switch this to will change the data being displayed on the left and right screens up there. And what we're going to do is check out this switch called desired track and status. So desired track, basically we think of that as a track, a direction. And then the and that's on the left side, usually in degrees in this mode. And then on the right, it's basically giving us some information as far as the current status of our unit. In other words, can it be navigated with or not right now? A 0 means it's basically not aligned yet. A 1 would mean that it is aligned. Notice that the battery light just came on, and the 9 changed to an 8 over here. All right, so we're going to talk about that in a moment. 5 or less basically means the unit's aligned. So what's happening is as these gyros spin up, this number starts to tick down. Now, interestingly enough, I'll show you right here. I came across a pretty cool document you can find online. This is like a CIVA handbook, basically. And this page over here tells you what these numbers mean. So like we saw it start off with number 9. It's in standby mode. I think NU is navigation unit warming up. Number 8, which we just saw, means that now we have a course level reference. Now by that I mean we're getting some sort of a horizon, and it's coarse, as in it's rough. It's not a fine-tuned leveling. It's just course reference. And basically you can see here, it basically says the gimbals are now aligned to the local horizon and the battery unit is tested. So we just saw that little battery light flash on. And then as the number ticks down, it's telling us, you know, that by number 7, an initial estimate of true north has been made. So now it has a direction reference. Then as it ticks down, and the gyros and accelerometers are further calibrated. Pretty neat, right? And then once we get to 5 and less, we're good enough to navigate with. So just an FYI, you know, we're pretending that we're now back again in the, you know, in the 60s and 70s flying these aircraft, and we don't have GPS reference. Let's see. Let's go back out for a sec. Okay, notice that the gyros have now given enough information to also level off our attitude indicators. If we were staring at it from 8 to 7, we would have seen it sort of slowly go into position. It's pretty cool. So anyway, let's go back here, and we said that the next thing we really need to do, in order for this unit to basically give us an ability to navigate, first we need to tell the unit where it is. If you stop and think about that for a moment, it makes perfect sense. Imagine you were going to go to your favorite shopping center. You could think of the directions on how to get there based on where you currently are at this very moment. But if you had no idea where you were in relation to the shopping center, how could you establish a set of directions to get there if you didn't know currently where you were? So we're going to give this unit that information. And in order for us to do that, we're going to take the data selector and we're going to put it on position. And we're going to do that on all 3. And this is really the only time that we will have to put on all 3 units the same set of coordinates. When we do the waypoints later on, we're going to use the RE-MOTE function. But when it comes to the position initialization, we basically have to do that 3 separate times. Okay, so now that we have that in there, the next thing we need to do is set the waypoint selector, which is right here, to 0. And by default, if it's the first time you're opening it, it should be on 0, but you can see it put it to 1, 2, 3, and so on. So we need to make sure that those are on 0. And then the question is, well, where do we get our coordinates, our location? So this flight is out of the South Satellite Terminal at Seattle, Tacoma. And I'm going to show you 2 sources that I know of. One of them would be if you were a NaviGraph subscriber. So let's go ahead and have a look at that first. And if you're not, I'm going to show you a super easy way after that. But anyway, if we were in our flight plan of NaviGraph, and then we were looking at the charts that were available to your flight plan. Now I put them all on the pin board, but to show you where those would be, you go to the taxi tab, and then you have like your airport info, which of course shows you the runways and the taxiways. But this is a pretty big terminal, decent sized terminal with a lot of different gates, so they needed a separate chart for the gates. But even in the gate diagram, it doesn't give us the actual coordinates, and what we need are the coordinates. So since we're parked over at S3, we're going to go to a separate chart that's called parking gate coordinates. And from there, I am going to show you, since we are at the South Satellite Terminal, it's up this one over here. All right, you have concourse A, B, and C, but we are located at this one. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And if I need to, I'll edit this a little larger on your screen. We are at gate S3, and you can see over here, they're showing you S2 through S3A. The coordinates are north 47 degrees, 26.3 minutes, and west 122 degrees 18.1 minutes. And that's pretty much the format we'll need. We'll talk a little bit more about format when we put in the waypoints, and sometimes the need to convert. But for now, let's just get these in. So you have 4726.3. All right, so if I come back into here, I would put that in these coordinates. Now, before I do that, let me just go back over here and show you where you would get the coordinates if you were not a NaviGraph subscriber. If you go to the electronic flight bag tablet provided by this aircraft, and let's zoom on in. All right, and we're going to click on INS, and right over here it gives you the coordinates of your current position in the correct format that we need for this CIVA for the INS. 47 degrees 26.3 minutes and 122 degrees 18.0 minutes. Okay, so that's a nice little handy shortcut if you don't have access to the coordinates. So that's an option. The other thing I should point out while we're here, you see this here, quick align. So if you wanted to bypass the whole waiting for the gyros to spin up, and you know, you only had a little bit of time after work and you just want to get going, you could just go ahead and click on quick align, and it basically instantly gets everything aligned and set to navigate. Although I can't remember offhand if these will automatically move over to nav, so you'd have to double check that. But either way, now you know where to get it. So since we took the time and the money to spend on NaviGraph, we might as well use that source just to show you how to put it in. All right, so we said gates S2 through 3A, which we're at gate S3. We're going to put in 4726.3. So all you got to do is just type in the numbers. Now, wait a minute. If we tried to do that, it wouldn't necessarily work right away. So the first thing we need to do first in this unit is we first have to identify the hemisphere. And notice that the 2, 4, 6, and 8 have letters as well. And that's directions, north, south, east, and west. So the first time we press the number 2, it will not enter a number 2. It will identify the hemisphere. And I know I've pressed it enough when I see the insert light come on. So let's go ahead and push it. Now we have a blinking 0, insert, and now I'm going to type in the coordinates. So we said, what was it? 4726.3. So I do 4726, and if you're looking for the decimal key, you're not going to find it. It basically by default just keeps it there, and if you put in the correct amount of digits, then it will say 47 degrees 26.3 minutes north, and let's look over here, 4726.3. Cool. Then we got to put in west 122.181. So coming back here, if I just start typing in 1, oh my god, look at that, I totally messed that up. See that? So that's a good little mistake to make. It put it here because I didn't identify the hemisphere to activate this one. Okay, so I'm just going to hit clear. Clears it out. I'm going to hit north 47263, insert. Then I got to do west, and now notice the east changed to a west here. Now this is ready to be typed in, and we said 122.181. So I'm going to type in 122.181. All right. Then I'm going to hit insert, and now it's in. Notice that the insert never extinguished between the latitude and the longitude. So let's do it over here, and I'll demonstrate that again. And that's normal. I had questioned that at one point, but a buddy of mine looked up to see if that was correct in the manuals, and kudos to Felis, it is correct. So we'll see it here. So if I do north 47263, insert, it doesn't extinguish, whereas when you're doing waypoints later, it will between the latitude and longitude, just so you know it's correct. Then we do west 122.181, insert. Okay, and then let's come on down here, zoom in a little bit, right? Again, we're making sure that the waypoint selector is on 0, the data selector is on position, and now we're going to do north 4, 7, 2, 6, 3, insert, west 1, 2, 2, 1, 8, 1, insert. Cool. And now we have all 3 units identified where their position is. And now what will happen is the alignment process will continue. I remember reading somewhere in one of the manuals for the INS that it will not get below 7 until you identify its position. So that was kind of interesting. Cool. All right, that's how you put in your position. And we're going to continue on through the checklist, and by the time we come back, we'll be putting in some waypoints. All right, look at that. We can see that we just dropped down to a 5. The other unit is still showing 6, and I'm sure the center unit is as well. If we were to look at this list once again, and 5 basically tells us that INS may be advanced to nav at any time during this mode with no loss of accuracy. If we went back in here for a moment, we would also see up top that we have one of our green lights with that corresponding unit is ready to go to nav mode. I'll just wait for all 3 of them to go green before I put that into nav mode. I'll put all 3 of them together. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Probably not, but why take a chance at this point? Somebody else can comment down in the comments below if they know. And we just need to make sure that we do actually rotate these to the nav mode before we push back the aircraft. So in case I forget to mention that in the video, remember that from this notation right now, okay? Here comes another one just popped up. So they're almost there. But during this time, we could have been entering in waypoints, and that's what we're going to do right now. So let's discuss how to set up the unit to do that, and then we'll actually talk about the route and some of the logic I used. Alright, we are back, and we can see here that our units are fully aligned. The digit that tells us that, basically we want 5 or lower, and it's all the way down to 0 now. Also, this digit changed from a 0 to a 1. 1 basically means that now it's ready to track. It's capable of navigating. So that's all in there. And we'll show you later on in the video just switching the mode selector from align to nav. But for now, let's just stay focused on setting up the unit here to receive some en route fixes in the coordinates for them. So the first thing we're going to do, so we don't have to do this several times over, is we're going to activate the remote button here. And if we have a closer look, you can basically just sort of see it's broken up as remote. So we're going to light that up, and we'll take care of this one. And we will do this one. All right. Okay. Zoomed in, kind of hard to work this, so bear with me. There we go. And then what we're going to do is put the data selectors onto waypoint. So if you had it on position before or desired track and status, we need to switch that back over to waypoint now. Right there. And right there. Okay, cool. Now, what we're seeing now is this unit is now set up almost to receive fixes, and we've set it up in such a way that when we put in our waypoints, we only have to do 1 on this unit, and every time we put 1 in, it will transfer automatically to the other units. So we only have 9 waypoints that we can work with. We have the 0 position, which was our location, and then 1 through 9. Well, imagine having to manually enter that in 3 times. That'd be 27 entries for 9 waypoints. That'd be a lot of work. So the remote function eliminates the need to do it an additional 2nd and 3rd time. You just have to make sure that they're all on. Now, the next thing we need to do is put this on Waypoint Selector to Waypoint 1. And whatever we select the Waypoint Selector as, that is what we will be typing in to that slot, essentially, when we enter in the coordinates for the given waypoint. So as long as we have this on waypoint on the data selector and also on the waypoint selector number 1, we're good to go. The last thing we want to do is enter that into position 0 because that'll mess up our alignment and we got to do it all over again. Okay, so then the next question is, well, where do I get the coordinates? And how do I make sure that's the correct format? Let's start by having a look at the actual routes themselves, just to give us a visualization of where we're flying. So we're going to switch this NaviGraph back over to here. And many of you that are watching this video possibly use NaviGraph, but it is a paid service, so I'm not going to assume everybody does. But we could see the route from Seattle coming on down to Dallas-Fort Worth. Another one that is available for free, an excellent resource, is SimBrief, SimBrief.com. And what I did was I created the same flight plan. There's going to be a lot more information that we're going to look at in here, or available to us. And I went to one of the pages that show the actual routing. Not a lot of extra information on here, but you can see basically each one of those boxes is a waypoint. And then another source that's excellent and free, it's great for United States flyers, anybody that likes to fly in the United States, no matter where you are in the world. SkyVector is an excellent resource because it has all the FAA published charts for free. So if you're flying in a different area of the world, you might be more focused on different chart sources, unless SkyVector somehow covers it well, or maybe SimBrief, or NaviGraph. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to consider is how many of these fixes are we going to enter? If we look at these routes, we could break it into 3 general areas. A phase where we are departing out of the airport and climbing to our en route cruise altitude, in this case 35,000 feet. And during this time we might be on a thing that's like a published standard instrument departure. And if you look at the route that I had posted in the show more section, and can also be seen on the screen, the departure procedure that we're going to be flying is the SUMMA 2 to Baker City. So that's a cool advantage of the SkyVector chart. If you put your mouse over the fixes, they'll like light up. Pretty neat. Anyway, so the departure procedure is called the SUMMA 2 to Baker City. And basically, during the departure, we will be on radio navigation. That's here, slant alpha, slant whiskey flying by VORs. Now, this route is set up so that we could continue the whole way on slant alpha or slant whiskey, but what's the point of that if we were learning how to use the INS? So once we get to Baker City, that's the last fix on the departure procedure, which marks the first fix on the en route phase of flight. And that's the phase of flight that we're going to be entering fixes for into the CIVA, the en route phase. And then the last fix of the en route phase will be the first fix of the arrival phase, the standard terminal arrival route. Here is finger 7 arrival into Dallas-Fort Worth. And again, when I put my mouse on it, you can see it lighting up there. And it's out of IRW VOR. So you can see that lighting up. And that is Will Rogers VOR into the finger 7 arrival into Dallas-Fort Worth. So we basically need to enter in all the fixes. However, do we really need every single fix along the en route phase of flight? Like we said, there's only 9 available waypoints to store in the actual unit. So the more we exceed that 9, the more work we'll have to do during the flight. But that's okay. I actually intentionally picked a 10 fix route so that we could demonstrate that as it is a realistic need. However, to save ourselves some work, if this route had 15 or 20 fixes, that would be a lot of extra coordinates we have to enter in. So let's just look at, again, that logic of which ones should we pick and which ones can we leave out. So like we said, the departure ends at Baker City, which is the beginning of the en route, and the en route ends at Will Rogers, which is the beginning of the arrival. So let's focus on fixes from Baker City to Will Rogers. I'm just going to use the FAA version because it's, I think, easiest to see in this particular application, but obviously this will apply to your charts as well. You could scroll along at home as you see fit. If we zoom on in to Baker City, it might make sense like, well, yeah, of course that would be the first fix you put in because it is the first fix of the in route. Okay, that's totally true. But then we can see this other fix called Hovel. That's an intersection along this route. Well, I would tell you right now that I wouldn't bother putting that in. After that is Boise. And Boise I would put in. And here's what's the theme that you're going to see. Any fix on the route where we either have a heading change to make, or if it's a long stretch, let's say 150 miles or more, then I might put a fix in the middle if there's anything available. But otherwise, if it's a fix where no direction changes take place, I'm not going to bother. So Baker City, we'll put that in. Boise, we'll put that in because there's a change there. Hovel, nah, not worried about it. Go over to Pocatello. Yep, there's a direction change there. We'll put that in. All right. Rock Springs. Well, you might say that's a pretty long straight leg. However, it's 179 miles between Rock Springs and Pocatello, and another 231 between Rock Springs and Falcon. So we will definitely put that one in. What else do we have here? Then you have Falcon. That's definitely a change in direction, so we got to put that in. Quail, that's right along the airway, but it's only 70 miles between, and it's not changing the heading, so we'll leave it out. Hugo, slight direction change. We'll put that in. Lamar, again, actually almost straight, but it lengthens out on the other end, so I'm going to put that in there as well. Drawl intersection, not too worried about it. Liberal VOR, direction change, so we'll have to put that in there. Rolls intersection, okay, so we'll put that in there as well. And then the very last fix of the in-route phase, Will Rogers VOR. All right, so now you have some basic understanding of the logic itself. Cool, let's go back over to give ourselves a better visual of Baker City. We're going to zoom in over here. All right, and we'll start over with NaviGraph, actually, the first one, because I think a lot of people have it. Trust me, it will not be centered on this only. But we're just starting here because I actually wanted to show you, I think, what is a little bit confusing just due to the format that NaviGraph gives us to work with. Whereas on the other sources I'm going to show you, it's actually easier. So I'm going to click on here, and it says, you know, this is Baker City and the frequency Morse code identifier. I then click on the details, and all of a sudden I have coordinates. So 44 degrees north, 50 minutes, 26.2 seconds. And that's the problem. NaviGraph is giving it to us in seconds, but we need it in 44 degrees, 50 point whatever minutes. So we have to convert the seconds into tenths. Pretty easy to do. All we need to do is divide the seconds by 60. There's, of course, you math whizzes out there will have shortcuts in no time for this. But if we were to actually just sort of look at this worked out, let's go ahead and do it. So if we wanted to convert this 26.2 to a decimal, we just take the 26.2, divide it by 60, and you get 0.436, which could arguably round to a 0.44 if you want to do it, either 43 or 44, right? And all you do now is say 44 degrees, 50 minutes, I should say 44 degrees, 50.44 minutes. Okay, let's have a look at the SkyVector version so we can see if the coordinates at least line up. And look over here. 44 degrees, 50.44 minutes. So the math worked out nice, didn't it? Right? Pretty neat. So to finish out the example, for longitude west, 117 degrees, 48 minutes, and 28.3 seconds. That's pretty close to 30 seconds, right? And what's the decimal of a half a minute, right? 30 seconds is 0.5. So the math is going to work out that way most likely. We just take that 28.3 divided by 60 equals 0.471, which is really 0.47 or 0.5. So it's 117.48.47. Come back over to the chart under FAA, 117.48.47. All right, so there you go. So that is the format that you need. Last thing to mention. Now, whether it's the decimal already converted or you're doing the converting, in the CIVA, latitude is always a 5-digit number, longitude is always a 6-digit number. But as you can see here with the extra digit, you just use that for rounding. So for instance, if we were to, let's say, put in Baker City, we're not going to put in 4450.44 because it's not enough digits. But we can put in 4450.4. Let's do that now. So we already had this set up on Waypoint Selector. We have this on Waypoint. We got to identify Northern Hemisphere, right? 44 degrees. What was it? 50.4. So 44 degrees, 50.4. 54, right? So now watch what happens here. I'm going to hit insert, and now it's going to extinguish. We mentioned that earlier in the tutorial. During positioning it, it does not extinguish during that until you put in the second one. But in this case, it will. So I'm going to hit insert, and now it's in. But now I have to put in the longitude. So what I mean by just reading off the numbers is this. 117 degrees, 48.5 minutes. I'm going to round that, use the 7 to round the 4 to a 5. 117, 48.5. I'm going to just think in my mind, 117,485. That's easier for me. 117,485. So west, 117,485. Cool. There we go. All right. And now you're going to do that for the rest of them. However, let me just show you one other thing at this point. We mentioned here that Baker City, we can see the coordinates here. We saw how to get it from the NaviGraph, but we had to do a conversion. Okay, so we know how to do that for every fix. Basically just click on the fix, or if it's an intersection, click on it, and it has, again, the coordinates. Limitation with SkyVector, though, on the map itself, on the chart, the coordinates are not there, only for the VORs most of the time. However, you see this navlog button. If you take the time to put in like your true airspeed and your altitude, it'll use that day's weather. That if you click on navlog, it turns into this awesome piece of information. And we're going to just zoom in on that a little more. Scroll on down. And we're going to see Baker City 4450.44 or 4450.4, 117.48.5. So we have that in there. But look at this. The intersections are there too. Hovel, okay, any other fixes that are intersections are in there. And we're going to need that for roles intersection later, right? SimBrief users, thought I left you out, right? No way. So let's go all the way up from this routing that doesn't have much information all the way to the top. All right, let's click on here. Now, like I said, I did Southwest Airlines output from my flight plan. So on the Southwest plan, the list of fixes typically starts on page 3. And I'm going to sort of zoom that in. Okay, maybe click a couple more times. We'll scroll on down. You got Seattle right here, top of climb, and then Baker City. 44504, 117.485, and we look back down here. 44504, 117.485. So you see how to put it in. Let's put in the second waypoint, number 2. So we take our thumb wheel, waypoint selector, turn that to 2. Zoom on out. We're going to skip Hubble because it's just a straight leg. Go over to Boise. Okay. And it's 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, because the 7 rounds that to it too. So we got 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, north. 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, insert. Okay. And then we come over here, west 116, 115. All right, so watch this. 1, 1. Wait, I'm pushing 1. Why isn't anything happening? Why? Oh yeah. First, you got to activate that hemisphere. Okay. West 116, 115. There we go. Insert. Right? If we want to double check it, 116, 115. 116, 115. Cool. Waypoint 3. All right. Zoom on out. Scroll over to Pocatello. Zoom on in. 42522. The last 2 doesn't change it, so it's 42522. North. 42522. Insert. And then we got west 112391, because the 3's not strong enough to push that to a 2. 112391. 112391. Insert. Cool. We'll tune back in to waypoint 9. Okay, we're just got done with waypoint 8. We're gonna put in waypoint 9, and once again, rolls intersection here. Couple things I just wanted to note with rolls. The things like rolls or like a VOR like King's Fisher here. Notice that the longitude is now it's displayed still as 6 digits, but it's instead of like 117 degrees like we were doing earlier, it's now 98 degrees, certain amount of minutes and seconds. Here's the key thing. For this thing to work right, the degrees always has to be 3-digit format. And then the minutes are 2-digit with 1 decimal figure. So here, see how this is 110 degrees, 58 minutes, and then the decimal. So if it's less than 100 degrees, you have to put the 0 in front. All right, so I just want to point that out. The reason why I'm pointing that out is because depending on the source that you look up, it might not always have that. Like on the FAA charts, they don't put the 0 in there. Now we go to rolls, and there's nothing in there. However, thankfully, when we go over to like the nav log here, we go down to rolls. In this format, they did put the 0 in there. But just be advised of that, because otherwise you can put in the wrong coordinates and your airplane suddenly makes a left turn or a right turn when it should have went the other way around. So we're going to put in 35434 because the 6 rounds it to a 4. 35434. North. 35434. Insert 35434, and that was 35434. And then 099282. West 099282. Great. So basically right now what we have is we have enough waypoints to get us almost all the way there. Wait a minute, something went wrong. 35434. Uh-oh. Glad we spotted this quick enough here. Let's put in, I don't know what happened to my longitude. Waypoint 9. 099282. Okay. West. 099282. Insert. Right? 099282. 099282. Looking good. Okay. All right. So what I just wanted to point out now is that we use the remote function, right? So if we look here, we have our 0 point, which is back at the gate we're at now. And then we have all our waypoints. And let's say it's on waypoint 4. If I put this on waypoint 4, notice that they match up, right? So the remote function worked. And we could go through all of these and, you know, double check and make sure that they all went through. Pretty neat, right? Excellent. So our waypoints are in. Let's get rid of the remote function. Let's come on up top and see. Oh, look at that. We have 3 greens on our selector, right? So let's go ahead and turn these now to nav. And now this airplane can safely be moved. So what we can do now basically is continue on with our procedure checklist, get this aircraft rolling out to the runway. We'll check back in over there, discuss then the departure procedure and at what point will we transition from the radio navigation of the departure to the INS CIVA navigation en route. All right. Let me see. Oh, and then what we'll do is we'll fly a couple of checkpoints. And after we pass the second checkpoint, or second waypoint, I should say, we will then enter in Will Rogers VOR as the 10th slot. All right, and we'll see where that goes. All right, here we are on the runway, as if we were told to line up and wait. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing a briefing at this point, but for this demonstration purpose, just wanted to point out what we're doing right after departure. We're basically set up for radio navigation. On the departure, the SUMMA 2 departure here, we can see that if we look closely at our aircraft symbol up here is at the airport, and we mentioned earlier that we're going on to the Baker City transition out of the SUMMA 2 departure. We're taking off out of 16 left, so if we had a quick look on the side here, it says climb heading 164, and then the 161 radial out of Seattle to Navo. So you can see that depicted right here, Seattle 116.8. You got the heading 164, and then the 161 radial to Navo. At that point, you make a left turn heading 131 until you intercept the 146 radial out of Seattle, okay, which is over here. And then we're going to just track that on down to SUMMA intersection. The SUMMA intersection being made up of the 146 radial out of Seattle, and over here the 100 radial out of Olympia, which is, in this area it's to scale, but this box is not to scale, so the radial doesn't perfectly line up. So don't mind that distortion. And then at this point, as we turn doing radio navigation by VORs, over SUMMA, we'll be heading toward and getting onto the course of 100 toward Baker City. And then we will demonstrate the transition from radio navigation to INS. So basically what we have over here is that our radios are set on 116.8 with the 161 radial on the nav1, and 116.8 on the nav2 with the 146. We got the heading 164, and our roll mode is currently set up for heading. So we're not tracking any kind of INS information yet. And we have our radio switch here set, radio INS switch set to radio, and that's the other key component in your choice of navigation, is making sure that this is currently set for radio so that the HSI displays VOR information, or basically ground-based transmitter information, radio transmissions, instead of INS. And then we'll see how we actually work that once we're airborne. All right, so I think we're ready to go here. We'll release the brake. We'll pretend that we've been cleared for takeoff. And let's just go ahead and roll this forward here. Get our engines stabilized at about 110 on the EPR. And we will see you in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody, where we are enjoying a lovely view of the peak of Mount Rainier out our window here, coming up through the clouds. And it's quite an impressive view. That mountain, of course, being located underneath this inset box. You can see the elevation rising on the area here. If you look on the sectional chart reference, we can see actually it is a 14,410 foot peak out here. Quite a hefty obstruction, obviously. If you're wondering, the scenery you're seeing here is this particular scenery is Orbix Washington True Earth, but I also have a lot of scenery generated by Ortho4XP, which is free. It's a great source. But anyway, let's get on to navigation. We're 37 miles out from Seattle. So normally we would have had this set up already, but I just figured I'd show it to you. We want to set up the next radio for Olympia, which, looking over here, you can see we're already in the not to scale inset, but we haven't reached SUMMA because SUMMA is 50.8 miles from Seattle, and the 100 radio on 13.4 from Olympia. So let's put that in. 100 is going to go here, and Olympia is 13.4. So we'll dial that in, and you can see the Nav2 HSI is showing still fully. Oh, it's just coming in. All right. So we're again DME1. We're got to go to 50.8, which will put us right over SUMMA. And when this is centered, that's confirming it out of Olympia. All right. So the other piece of evidence, by the way, I was mentioning radio versus INS source navigation switch and what's displayed on here. So you can actually see that right there depicted as well. So this is picking up ground sources here. So what we're going to do now, as you are well aware of Slant Alpha, Slant Whiskey Flying, as we're going to turn, we're still on, actually we're on VOR tracking. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this heading bug with our current heading. I'm going to put that on heading select, and now I'm going to turn to about 100. And then while that's happening, let's go ahead and put this course on the Nav1 to 100, because the Nav1 is what we're doing now, and the Nav2 is what we're doing next typically. So we have 100 dialed in. We can see this is coming centered on this side, but it's overly deflected on this side. But that's because we got to switch the frequency, as we know, to what says 13.4. Okay, the nav flag just came off. Of course, good practice would be then to check with the source, the Morse code identifier. We're skipping that step for now. Climb's going pretty well. We're about to hit 18,000 feet. So let's go ahead and put in 299er2. And the next thing we're interested in doing is setting up the next fix. I'm going to put it on Radio Nav, the Baker City, which is a ways away. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so if we look again on the Baker City VOR here, which is basically we just turned over SUMMA, and we're going to Baker City, and that's on 15.3. So we can put that here, and it's actually coming in already at 192 miles away. I wouldn't necessarily trust that signal, mainly because they do depict a changeover point that is not the halfway point from between Olympia and Baker City. It's actually closer to Baker City. So it's also depicted here that there's a mileage breakpoint. So we, technically speaking, in real life, might lose some reception for a while. But that being said, we are now on our way to Baker City out of Olympia. And what we want to do next now, for demonstration purposes, we're doing a little bit early, is I want to now transition over to INS, right? So we're still currently on radio navigation. Once again, the way I tell that is basically my source here is showing on radio switch, if you can see that pretty well. So I got radio on there, and it says VOR ILS over here. And the same thing, if we looked at the other side, we'd see the same thing, basically, right? So we have that, and we have radio. Okay, cool. So before I switch this aircraft to start tracking our INS source, what I want to do is I want to make sure that when we do so, the airplane doesn't randomly start a turn to one side or the other. And the way we can do that is by first activating the source to INS. Now when I select the source to INS, the autopilot will not track any changes here, because this is switch just displaying information on here. It's not telling the autopilot what to actually follow. So let's go ahead and do this, and notice that all of a sudden the magnetic reference up here turned true, and also the course slightly changed, and also we have a full-scale deflection that's saying, hey, turn your airplane to the left. Now that if we engage the INS right now, the airplane would turn, and we don't want that to happen. Let's zoom out a little bit and see what's happening here. So here's the airport in this circle up on the upper part of your screen, and here's our first waypoint, Baker City, that's dialed into the INS. And what this is basically saying is take your airplane, right? In other words, what I should say is, what this indication is saying is turn the airplane somewhere over here to get on course and go that way. But we're on course already, so why does it tell us to turn to the left? Well, here's why. Basically what happened was when we initially identified that waypoint 0, that initial position, right? Waypoint 0, right? Going from 0 to 1, our 0 point was the gate. All right? And if I didn't mention it earlier, right, so you have your waypoint selector is here. The 0 is where you're coming from, and the 1 in this case is where you're going to. And this is going to switch as we go along if I didn't mention that earlier. So it's giving us a proposed course based on 0 to 1. But the problem is it's assuming, oh, you want to go from your gate direct to Baker City. But it didn't know that we were going to fly south first. So what we're going to do essentially is just reestablish our 0 point with a waypoint change. And that's going to fix everything. So I'm going to leave it into this sort of zoomed in look so we can see what's happening here. And I am going to over here, let me just get a good view for you guys, hopefully. By the way, notice that when I switched the source on the INS switch, it went to INS over here as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a waypoint change, and we're going to reestablish the 0 location to our current location. So we're going to do waypoint change. This lights up and everything. This still looks the same on this side. Got to type 0 and then 1. And when I hit insert, you're going to see this needle come centered. It's going to change its course a little bit. And basically it's saying, oh, you're here? Well, this is the way you have to go now to go direct to Baker City and track that course. So let's hit insert. If you need to, you can always rewind the video a bit to see it all happen. Let's hit insert and we'll see that course change. Boom. And look at that. Now it's centered. Okay? Now, with some level of confidence, I know that all I need to do is put this to INS source right there. Okay? And the aircraft might make a slight adjustment because since we're talking, we are slightly drifting to one side or the other, even though it's not depicting yet. But let's go ahead and do that. Let's put this on INS. The airplane is making a gentle change, and now we've just transitioned from radio navigation to INS, and that's it. That's all you had to do. The main thing in this part of the tutorial, though, was just to make sure that you reestablish your 0 point so that when you engage the INS, the aircraft doesn't do some crazy things. Now, if we took our nav 2, let's go to get into a view where we can see pretty well over here. All right. Like that. Maybe like that. There we go. So this is still on radio source. It's on the Baker City. And what we're going to do is we're going to switch it to INS. As you can see, it's off as well. So we can now establish the new 0 point on this side as well. 0 to 1. When I hit insert, this is going to come centered. And there we go. That's it. And now this aircraft will basically go over every single waypoint that we've programmed in here And because this is the roll mode is set to track on INS, it will make all the turns for us. So you're all set. We're good to go. We'll see each other just before we reach Baker City. All right, check this out. As you can see here, we're about 18, now 17 miles from the station, from the Waypoint Baker City, and this alert light came on, as well as the alert lights on the CIVA units here. And basically this light comes on 2 minutes before you reach the waypoint, according to the literature. So it's based on time, 2 minutes. So if you're going slower, it'll take longer for that to light up. Also notice there's a difference between the distance on the CIVA and the distance on the VOR radio source. That's because this is lateral distance, and this is what we call slant range distance. And since we're up at 35,000 feet, it's going to add some more distance. We're essentially the hypotenuse of the triangle in this case. So we're further up. The only way this will ever read 0 is if we're about to smack into the VOR, and obviously we don't want that to happen. So this will never get down to 0. They'll get down to like 7 or 6, sometimes 5, depending on your altitude, obviously. This will typically go down to 1, although sometimes it changes early. And then what will happen is we're going to see that we're still going from 0 to 1, and we're going to go from a 1 to a 2. So this will change, the course will change, and this all will happen like at the same time. So you can always rewind the video a couple times, but I'm just sort of giving you an angle so that we can see that change. And then we can also make note again of what will the DME actually get down to in this particular instance. The course change is going to be to the right by a few degrees out to 117. Now that's on true instead of magnetic, so it's going to be a little different, but there it goes. And look at this, 1 to a 2, right? So we're going to the second waypoint. The aircraft is turning, as can be seen on the attitude indicator up there, and the heading is changing. Yeah, and we made the turn. And if we come on over to the actual charts, and we look at Baker City, and the overall distance to Boise, it says 104. So the distances are in check. Alright, and I had already set up, actually no I didn't. Let's go ahead and plug in Boise as our next point, 13.3. And yeah, a little turbulence right now. The course into Boise is 301, which 111. Or 112, 121. Okay, it's harder to do. When you don't have the HSI needle turning with you, it's harder to do. Right, so we have that set up, and then the outbound from which was 117 here, so we can just put that right there. All right, and we'll see you at the next checkpoint. We are back once again just before reaching Boise. As we can see, we're less than 2 minutes out, about 19 miles. And one thing I wanted to point out, though, was that if you remember, when we did our initial entry of all our waypoints, we went up to waypoint 9. And if we were to display waypoint 9, we would see the coordinates 35.43.4 and 0.99.282. That was basically Roll's intersection. Is out over here toward our destination. And then the arrival is Will Rogers. Over here is a part of the arrival into Dallas-Fort Worth. And it's basically not to scale in this box, so Will Rogers is actually located over here. So we want that last fix. We want basically our CIVA to be planned out all the way through the last en route fix, which is basically the beginning of the arrival. Okay. So since we did not have space to put that in before, Well, once we go from waypoint 1 to 2, which we're doing now, and then once we're going from 2 to 3, we're going to be able to put that in. All right, we're going to put it into the... the next question would be, well, what slot do we put it in? So we're going to see a change in just a moment. There it goes. So now our aircraft is going to turn to a new course, about 089 magnetic. So the airplane's making the turn. And now basically the number 1 slot is free. It's no longer being referenced in any way. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Will Rogers into the number 1. So we know that Rolls is in the number 9 slot. Okay. We'll zoom in on this again. So what we do is we're going to put it onto the number 1. We don't want to use 0. 0 is like our reference point at any given time, whether it's back at the airport or where we currently are. Alright, so we don't want to mess with that. If we try to put something in there, it's going to screw everything up. So we're going to put in slot 1, right, our waypoint selector. And now we just need to go ahead and get the coordinates for Will Rogers. Would have been on NaviGraph. You just click it and you would do your conversion. Or you could go over to your flight plan on SimBrief, right? And Will Rogers is IRW, which is right here, 35215 and 097366. Or maybe you like to look at it like I do, with the chart in view, so you can visualize everything again. I'm going to use 35215. So it's going to put that north. 31215. Insert. And then we need the west, which is 973655. However, remember, you got to put in a 0 in front. 097365. Now, is the 5 a 5 or the 5 a 6? Well, that 5 is going to round that to a 6. 097366. 097366. Insert. Oh, you know what, though? I did not use the remote function. Let's see what happened as a result. Let's see the consequences. So, yeah, look at that. I had this still on 1 from before. 31215, 097366, 44504. They don't match up. So let's see what happens if I haven't tried this yet. Let's see if I can just do the remote over again. So let's try. And what I'm going to do now is just re-enter 31215. Insert. Oh, look at that. It is copying over. Excellent. And then it's 097366. Okay. Insert. And 097. Huh, that's interesting. It didn't go there. I wonder why that is. Let's try it again. Okay, let me double check. 31215, 097366. 097. What was that? 366. Insert. There it goes. Okay. That's interesting that it didn't go that first time. Wow. Let's see if it's down here. Yep, 31215, 097366. Alright, cool. It's awesome when that kind of stuff happens live because we can see mistakes that occur and how to fix them. Alright, so now we have our 10th waypoint. Basically what will happen is the aircraft will fly, let's see, we're on 2 to 3. So it's going to fly from, it's going to fly over to 4252, and then it's going to fly over to 4135, and so on, all the way through to waypoint 9, which is rolls. And then when it gets here, instead of turning back to waypoint 0, it's going to turn back to waypoint 1, but instead of waypoint 1 being all the way over in Seattle area, Baker City, it's going to be at Will Rogers. So that might lead you to a question of what would happen if we didn't do anything after that. Well, that's why we're going to discuss the transition back from INS to Radio Nav. See you shortly. Alright, we can see that we just came within 2 minutes of Rolls intersection. That's basically from waypoint 8 to waypoint 9, which can be seen over here. So basically the point of this segment right now is just to show you that Rolls was waypoint 9 in the selector, and then we dialed in Will Rogers, the last fix on the en route phase, into basically waypoint selection 1, slot 1. So yeah, we should see our aircraft turn no problem coming up in a few miles, and then we'll be preparing to transition back from INS navigation over to radio navigation. So soon after we make that turn, we'll get this thing set up so that we know that we're tracking the correct radial from the VOR, and we're set for the arrival basically. But what we'll do is we'll switch over in basically like 2 small steps just to ensure that everything is set up correctly, so that when we come out of INS navigation, we don't end up having the airplane suddenly turn on a strange direction on us. Pretty good ground speed, over 500 knots most of the trip. So for a 1,600 mile flight, it went pretty quick. Alright, here's our turn. Heading on toward Will Rogers. Basically 277 miles away. We were all excited to be turning and confident that we were going to go the right way, but we just discovered there's a problem. If we look over here, we actually did not turn toward Will Rogers, so we must have accidentally entered something incorrectly. Good mistake to make. Let's correct it. Okay, so right now we are continuing this way, and that's no good. So what we're going to do is I want to get us correctly established going this way. Now, since it's going to take a moment, what we can do is check the radio source, and we want to turn basically towards 090, let's say, right? Because this course is 097, so let's take maybe like a 070 for now. So let's put this on 077, and I'm going to hit the heading. Now, even though we are now tracking on heading select, we're going to still put in the information needed to get this correct for the rest of the INS portion, so we can then demonstrate the transition back over. So let's correct the coordinates. 35215 for Will Rogers. So we gotta go to here, and somehow we put it as 3121 whatever. So let's get remote in here. And let's come on back here, and we said it was 35215. North 35215. Insert. And then it's 097366. Okay, cool. And then we can get out of remote. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, if we look at this right now, this might be correct, but to just ensure that everything is sort of reset, I'm going to do waypoint change 0. Wait. Clear that. Waypoint change 9 to 1. Okay, just to ensure that this is based on that. And let's go ahead and turn the aircraft back to there. Okay. And let's go ahead and put that on INS. And let's see if it picks it up. My goal is to get this back on course before this hits 40. See if that happens. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and see correctly, so you can get a visual of what's happening here. The aircraft. Let's see if it went correct. Alright, well, at least it looks like it's on the correct heading. That is based on INS right now. What we were going to do is we were going to set up for slant whiskey navigation, you know, after turning from rolls, but that was cool that we had that mistake that we were able to correct for. We're going to now go ahead and do that. In the meantime, you can actually see we're getting back on course, so that's cool. And while that continues, let's go ahead and look at what we want to do. So we're basically heading to Will Rogers. And Will Rogers marks the beginning of this Finger 7 arrival. And basically what we need to do is make sure that we can track Will Rogers through basically VOR signal 114.1. And then also set up to go outbound from Will Rogers once we get there, so we can just continue as we normally would as slant whiskey, slant alpha flight. So the VOR is 114.1. Let's go ahead and put that in. I'll put it in from here as well because I want to see the amount course of, yep, 097. So 114.1. So we're going to put that up here. Alright. And we had it in there before on the nav 2. Coming out of Liberal, I think it was. But so now we have it set there. And the inbound to it was on the 277 radial right here. Right, 277 radial. So we're going to put it in the opposite direction at 097. Alright. And then when we get to Will Rogers VOR, it's not really an airway, it just shows a radial here, 130. Sometimes it will depict that, sometimes not. But that really is what a part of the Finger 7 arrival. So going outbound 130. So we're going to dial that in. Everything's set up for radio navigation. Now if I want to see my status, in other words, where am I tracking versus the desired course, I can go ahead and hit this. And we're a little bit off. And let's have a look over here. And sure enough, we are north of the route. I'm not really sure if this is because I haven't done, you know, more of the like the correction procedures and things like that. but that's okay. We can fix that. So let's just now officially transition over to radio navigation. So if we wanted to get back on this course before we reach the VOR, at this speed it's going to happen pretty quick. Well, let's just look at, since we're on this source, I can set my heading select, let's say about 130, and I'm going to switch this to heading mode, and now we're off of INS tracking, and this is going to turn toward the heading select. Alright, since we're going pretty fast, we can take a little bit of a bigger bite. Let's go 140. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I have it heading toward here, let's go ahead and put it on VOR source right there. So that way it'll do some of the work for us and intercept. Of course, many times we enjoy flying, you know, the heading select feature because it keeps us in tune more with the aircraft, but just figure out how to display the capability of your roll modes here. 18 miles. So yeah, hey, listen, we're pretty good from here. We basically did everything we set out to do, which was, of course, demonstrate flying the departure by radio navigation, transition to the INS, then fly the entire route, and we're transitioning right now back to radio navigation for the arrival. But then we had the added benefit of making a mistake and not catching it, which hopefully showed a nice demonstration of what happens when an unplanned mistake occurs, and we successfully recovered from it. Although it took a little longer, of course, than I would have liked to, but I think overall we did well. So hopefully this video is beneficial. We're about to turn at waypoint 1. Actually, we're on VOR Loc. We're going to go outbound on the 130, which marks the beginning of the Finger 7 arrival. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the flight. We're going to make the turn on heading select, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you on a future tutorial. Take care, everybody, and in the meantime, let's enjoy a flyby.